Welcome, my friends of the interwebs. And first of all, let me tell you something. I dig the politics stuff. I really do. It's an election year. I'm down with politics. I want something to say. I just dig it. That's why I'm doing a lot of political videos lately. It'll ease off, and I will do some other stuff for sure. But I love politics, and I like conservative politics because I consider myself to be, for the most part, very conservative. Although somewhat liberal on social issues, some social issues. But we don't need to get into that. The thing of it is that when I make my political videos, I do tend to be very hard on the Democrats or the liberals. And from time to time, actually a lot, I get people sending me long PMs telling me where I've went astray. And they usually go like this. By the way, every now and again you'll see this in the comment sections. But for the most part, they feel the need to sit down and educate me and shed some light into my world. To be Illuminati is what they like to be. So here's the thing. This is what I get. And they'll either call me Voodoo or Colonel, either one. It's probably about half of one, 6 dozen of the other. But anyway, let's just say Voodoo since it's my oldest one. It'll be, Voodoo, you don't know what you're talking about. You still think that there's a difference between Republicans and Democrats. Well, let me tell you, I found a lot. I've been educated. You're still hoodwinked, you know. And they'll go on and ad nauseum about how the Democrats and the Republicans are the same, and we're no better off with one or the other. They're just two heads from the same snake, blah, 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 blah. And the sooner I wake up, the better off I will be. Okay, let me address that. Because I will tell you, I do identify as a conservative. I identify more with the right than the left. I'm pro-gun, you know, there's a lot of things that I'm against taxes, you know. There's just a ton of stuff that I identify with the right. Having said that, I'm socially liberal on a lot of issues. I think you'd be very surprised. Having said all that, I don't want to go down that road. The thing of it is this. Listen, I understand where you people are coming from, because you've heard this and you've heard that, and on the surface it makes sense. You know, and they're the same. Republicans and Democrats are the same in one sense, and really one sense only, is that they're both whores and money corrupts them. That's the truth. They are both whores and money corrupts them. And that's unfortunate, and until we get the money out of our political system, I don't know if that's ever going to change, and that goes all the way back to Washington. I mean, I'm talking General Washington. You know, money corrupts, and that's just a fact. Having said all that, though, I don't know how many times I'm going to say having said all that, but listen, in the real world, which is kind of like the world I like to dwell in, not the cyber world. In the real world, there's a huge difference. I'm going to give you a big example here coming up pretty quickly. But the first thing I want you to think about when you're talking about Democrats and Republicans, all right, is the impact that it has on real Americans, real human beings living in the United States, trying to make it. And they may not be very wealthy, and they may just be trying to get through life, or maybe they have a decent job and they're middle class and they're carving out a nice niche for themselves. You know, but I want you to dwell just for a second on real Americans and the impact that the Democrats or Republicans have on their lives. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Most of you know, if you've been following me for any length of time at all, you know that one of the ways that I make my living is by leasing minerals to coal companies. Okay, I just use coal companies as a perfect example. And I've been doing this for a while now, you know, well, spanning 2 administrations, the Republican administration and a Democratic administration. And let me tell you how I've fared. And this is real life. This is reality. This is Democrat versus Republican in real life. Not in cyber world, okay? Not in Illuminati world, but in real life, okay? I want to throw this in. Not in Bilderberger world, you know, not in New World Order world, in real life. This is the way it works. When I first started to lease coal property, the mineral coal as a fuel source, I remember we signed a lease. I won't name the company, but we signed a lease with a fairly large coal company. I mean, large enough to where they had a lot of political juice. I mean, in fact, I think the president of the coal company that I signed a lease with on a fairly regular basis golfed with the governor of Kentucky, Stephen Beshear. So we're talking about a coal company that had some political juice, no doubt about it. Now, here's the thing. I can remember, because this was towards the last year of the Bush administration, or no, actually, probably about I think there was about 2 more years. It takes a long time to get a permit. I can't remember offhand, but it doesn't matter. So the big thing was, and I remember this was the topic of every single conversation dealing with this property and this coal. It was, we have to get our permit, the coal permit, the mining permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. There's a whole slew of permits you need to have. But we have to get some of the key permits, the federal permits, before Bush leaves office. Okay, before the Republicans lose the White House. I mean, we pretty much were certain that whoever the Democrats ran, it wouldn't really matter. They were probably going to win. So, because the mood of the country and the war in Iraq, all that stuff, the writing was on the wall. It wasn't that some special person came and the waters parted and all that stuff. No, that's not it. The fact of the matter is that the Democrats could have ran a chimpanzee against whoever the Republicans were going to run, and it wouldn't have mattered, in my opinion. Now, having said all that, that was the big conversation. It was, we have to get our permits. We have to get our permits. If we don't get our permits, we're screwed. Why would we say that? Well, the reason we would say that is because traditionally, Democrats have been very, very pro-environmental nut job. Okay, Greenpeace takes a very active position in Democratic politics. And we knew that was going to be the case. And we remembered, especially the coal company, and I talked to several people who had been around for a long time, they would talk about how things were under the Clinton administration and how it almost destroyed the coal industry then. So we pretty much assumed that it would be the same thing. So the big thing was, we must get our coal permits. We have to get our coal permits before Bush left. Okay? And lo and behold, we did. Right before Bush left office, we got our Army Corps of Engineer permit for the hollow fill. We got everything we needed on the federal level, and the coal company felt pretty good about the state. Even though Stephen Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, is a Democrat, because coal is so important for the coffers of that state, he dwells in reality. Okay, so they felt pretty good about the state permitting. It was just the federal permitting that was an issue. So anyway, we got the permits. Everybody was elated. I can still remember, because Obama won, and that sucked. That really sucked. But we had our permits to mine, and we expected to start mining in I want to say late January, early February, and everything was beautiful. Well, then all of a sudden, Obama takes over, and he appoints some of the most crazy left-wing environmental nut jobs you could ever find to the EPA. And when he did that, the first thing they did, for the first time in the history of our country, they rescinded all the permits that were issued under George Bush for further review. Okay, and let me tell you about sucking the life out of you. I mean, I remember getting that phone call, and I started shaking, because this meant a lot. This meant millions of dollars to me, literally, and it meant a lot of jobs all through Southeast Kentucky. There's a lot that coal brings to the table, a lot that brings to the table. But for me, it was a financial thing. And that, to me, I mean, if nothing else spells out the difference between Republicans and Democrats, that should. That should. Now, we ended up, because the economy was tanking early on, and natural gas still wasn't as low as it is today, and last winter was very warm. But until then, the winter before that was very cold, and they needed a lot of coal. And so they loosened up the permits, and we got our permit issued to us, the most important federal permit issued to us. And that was great. That was great. I can remember at the time listening to Obama speak and saying how coal was an important part of our country's energy future. Now, that was then. Okay, this is a couple years ago. Fast forward a bit, now we had a fairly warm winter. They didn't use as much coal. The EPA comes out with new regulations. Now, understand that the EPA, basically all the heads, the big wigs at the EPA, the people at the EPA that make policy are making Obama policy. The President of the United States is over the EPA. Okay, so everything the EPA does is by the President. That's just the fact. So the Democrats, who hate coal, who are basically in bed with the environmental nut jobs, and not to mention pocketing a lot of money from cylinder type situations, they're trying to kill coal. So here they are in a situation where, through EPA regulations, they've made it impossible for the older coal-burning power plants to meet these regulations, so they're closing. And it's strangling the coal industry. I mean, thousands of jobs right now are gone or are in hiatus. People are being laid off everywhere. I mean, thousands of people are laid off due to the Obama administration's EPA. This is the Democrats. If Mitt Romney wins the presidency, everything will change, and I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that. You know, people will be put back to work. He will not be waging this crazy war on coal. I mean, you look at, you know, a few years ago, Obama was talking about how coal was going to be an important part of our nation's energy future, and now look at him. You look at, go to his whitehouse.org, and you'll see this, all the above energy strategy. It doesn't mention coal. And coal's been taken off the table. So, you know, in the real world, there's a huge, huge difference between Republicans and Democrats. Huge. And I'm talking differences that make a huge impact on people's lives. I dare you, any of you who think there's no difference, are spewing that nonsense all the time about how there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, and we might as well stick with who we got, the devil we know versus Romney. I dare you to go anywhere into Appalachia and go up to a miner that's laid off and tell him there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. Go ahead. Listen. I will bet my left nut that you will find yourself squarely on your ass looking up going, what the hell just happened? Because there are a lot of really good hardworking miners right now. There are a lot of good hardworking conductors, railroad conductors, engineers, trackmen, truck drivers that are not working right now because of Democratic policies. You know, so you'd have a hard time convincing them that that they're all, you know, they're two heads of one snake, and that, you know, it doesn't make a difference whether or not you vote for Mitt Romney or not. In fact, you need to stick to your guns and your, you know, whatever, and blah, 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 and you're going to vote, you know, whoever you're going to vote for. You know, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got.